but my heart's pounding, my lips quivering, I'm feeling these emotions, and I'm wanting to cry. And I'm just fighting all of it because I'm thinking to myself, I cry in this room with these people, they're gonna think they got me. You know, they're gonna think I'm one of them, and I'm like, I'm fighting all these emotions, and then it was almost like before I know it, my hands are in the air, and the tears are streaming down my face, and it's like I can't even explain it. Like scales fell off my eyes. Like, this is real. He died on a cross for you. I don't even have good words for it other than it hit me because my first real prayer was, if you could fix me, do it. There was never a thought like he would want me, he loved me. Why would he? Like, if God's real, I'm just whatever. There was none of that. And it was this moment of, you love me. You love me. You died on a cross for me. You don't want to just fix me. You want a relationship with me? You died for me?
All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Paid Forward Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Keegan Walls, along with my co-host, Austin Seward. And today we have the awesome privilege of having on Pastor Shane Holden of First Free Church. So thank you so much for coming on.
Happy to be here.
Senior pastor, if I'm correct. That's your official title, right?
That's it.
There it is. So, yeah, no, we're super fortunate to be joined by you. I've known you for probably 10 years now. Austin and I both go to your church, so Shane is definitely somebody that we look up to, has had a huge impact on our walks of faith, on our lives. And yeah, so we're just super excited to have Shane here, and we're excited to dive into all the questions that we have. We have had a lot of time to prep the questions since you rescheduled 18 to 20 times. So that was nice. It gave us we had months and months of prayer.
Just trying to serve you well. I was just trying to serve you well. Make sure you guys are prepared.
Thank you. So before we get into the real stuff, do you remember the first time we ever met? Do you still, so I've known you 10 years, but do you still remember the first time we met and spoke?
No.
I do, and it was awkward.
Was it?
Yeah. It was the day I got saved.
We met the day you got saved?
I came down. We were in the old gym, right? This was like an unbelievable moment for me, right? This was after the Lord's really calling me. And I just remember praying this prayer. And I'm a punk personality. So I remember I didn't know anything about church, right? Didn't grow up in the church, wasn't raised in the church. And I remember being bold. I'm like, you know what, God, if you're real, you got to show me. And I'm not going to look at I said, I'm not going to look at a water droplet on my window and know what the heck that means. I'm not doing that stuff. I said, the guy that talks up there, you tell me through him. We were in the old gyms, and that was the moment I got saved. And I remember I was like, man, I feel like I should go tell him what you said and whatever. That was for me. So I remember I walked down, and I go, no, that's weird. I leave the gym. I got to tell him. I came down, and I remember I just look up at you, and I go, hi. Just mortified. That's the first words I ever spoke to you was, hi. And I just paused. I just remember staring at you with just these deer eyes. And you go, and I go, and you go, was that for you? I go, huh? And I turned my back and walked out.
No way. That was the whole conversation.
I couldn't, I couldn't say anything. And you just looked at me and said, was that for you? I go, yeah. And I just, didn't even give you a chance to say anything else. I just, way. Turned back, walked out.
Oh, that's fine. So it surprises you that I don't remember that?
Well, you only have a couple thousand people that have come through. But after 10 years of us being best friends, I figured maybe you'd know. But anyways, so getting into it, let's go a little bit back into just your childhood. I mean, you have an incredible testimony and story. So take us back to what it was like being Shane Holden, growing up in Madison, and what your childhood and your life growing up was like.
Sure, I'll just start talking. Direct me if you want me to go. I mean, so I grew up on the east side of Madison, poor neighborhood, whatever, rough neighborhood, rough family. Dad was alcoholic, drug addict, sex addict. My mom was from a family of 14, right? So I had 9 uncles. I had 5 aunts. Some of my uncles were just a couple years older than me, and they just lived a couple blocks away. So they didn't have a dad, right? And so their family was so dysfunctional. Good hearts, but all drug addicts and alcoholics. So the house I grew up in was kind of like a flop house in some ways, because several of them are usually living with us. So, it was one of those places. And in the midst of all of it, there was just whatever, lots of abuse, lots of violence. So by the time I started drinking heavy when I was probably 12 or 13. By the time I was 14, my mom had gotten remarried to a guy that was even a bigger drunk than my dad. And so my dad was off with some young girl, and my mom was with this guy, and I was just kind of on my own. It was just, even to the point where at times I didn't have a place to live, just kind of looking for a couch to crash on. So by the time I was like 14 or so, there was no authority in my life. And so I was obviously totally, completely off the rails, everything you would imagine. That was me, man, till I came to faith in my early 20s.
So what was some of the stuff you were doing? And then, now looking back, like, well, come on. We want to know
how many people are watching.
Right now, there's nobody watching. Well, when I post it, there might be more. But what were you doing?
You mean like how was I living as a young man?
Yeah.
I was, drank all the time, drank hard, started smoking pot. I started smoking pot with my uncles when I was probably 12.
Who doesn't?
So by the time I was 14 or 15, pot was I was an everyday pot smoker. I was that guy awake. And it was nobody, I didn't hide it. Nobody cared. It was like on the list of things I was doing that was pretty minor. So I just wake up and get high and stay high. It was just my life. And then, from there, obviously lots of other things happened. Harder drugs, over the course of those years. So I don't know, everything you can imagine with that life, lots of fighting, lots of trouble with the law. I had, golly, I think 9 or 10 underage drinking tickets, drunk driving tickets, in and out of jail. I lost my driver's license. I got the day I turned 16, I got my driver's license. Within 2 months, I had lost it. I didn't actually have a real driver's, but I kept driving. I was like, whatever. So the cops on the east side of Madison, by the time I was 17, I knew them all. And they all knew I didn't have a driver's license. So sometimes they'd leave me alone. Sometimes they'd pull me over, give me another ticket for driving on a suspended license. So by the time I actually had a real driver's license again, I believe I was 24 years old and in ministry by the time I actually took that long to get it back. So, yeah, I don't know,
What were some reasons, reflecting back, what were some of the big reasons of why you were turning to that life or feeling like you have to, right? Because a lot of people, that's what they do. If they grow up in that kind of dysfunction, for whatever reason, that's the kind of life that just over and over gets chosen. What do you think?
Some of it's what you see modeled, and as jacked up as my relationship with my dad was and the abuse I experienced, he was still my dad. So it's what you saw. That's what a man is. He's drinking, he's partying, he's sleeping around, he's a womanizer. And so some of it's just what you see modeled, and then some of it's just pain. You don't know what you're doing when you're a kid. You get abused, you have all these things happen to you. You're just trying to cope. You don't have language for it, but you're just trying to survive. So you start reaching to these things to numb the pain, and so those things are just, it's what you use to get through, it hurts. You don't know what to do with it. You're 12, you're 13, you're 14. You're supposed to get love. You're supposed to be protected. You're supposed to be provided for. You have none of that. And so you find your identity in a group, right? So your friends become your family, and they were just as messed up as me. And so you're all going the same direction. You're looking to these things to numb pain, to fill a void, to just cope with life. And so, sleeping around, doing drugs, it's just, it was at some level a pain number. You don't know that. You just think you're being a rebel, but that's for the most reason. I'm guessing that's why I ran to all those things. And you got no one guiding you. It's like no one's speaking into your life. You got no healthy role models, and everyone around you is just totally dysfunctional. I was getting hammered with my family at 14 years old, 13 years old, 8th grade. You know what I mean? Like, just that was what I grew up with. It was insane. Like, well, just thinking back on the dysfunction, it's almost hard to believe it was real. It was that dysfunctional, but it really was. And so you just become a product of all of it.
That's wild. So then going from a life to that to now being in ministry for a long time, what's your testimony? How did you ultimately go from that kind of life and find Jesus, or how did Jesus find you?
John Tessman, this guy, my best friend, Blaine, and we had all, Shane and Blaine, it was bad.
That's a duo.
Yeah.
It's like a comic book.
Ask my wife. Because Vicky was a part of my life even then, so she knew Blaine well, and anyway. But his dad, Blaine lived with his dad, and he was divorced, and he was a ex-military guy, big dude, drywaller, Golden Gloves boxer in the Navy. He was that guy, and everyone was afraid of him because he was kind of mean, but he loved me. And he just had a heart for me, right? So oftentimes I'd crash on their couch for weeks at a time, take me in, feed me. He's just really good to me. But he wasn't a believer by any stretch of the imagination. He was a good dude, he took care of his kids. The mom was out of the picture, so he was a single dad. And so 5 o'clock every day at a meal on the table. He wasn't a Christian, but he was trying to keep a decent life for Blaine. So he just let me be a part of it. And so, but he went out every Saturday night. That was his night. He'd go out drinking until bar time. He was a really good-looking guy. Always came home with a girl. Right, I crashed there every Saturday night. We had a party there every Saturday night because he was going to be gone. So that was our so I just remember it vividly. I remember one Sunday morning. I was probably 15 or 16. I can't remember exactly, but I'm crashed on their living room floor where I was crashed, and he comes walking out. He didn't go out that night. He hadn't gone out that Saturday night, so we went somewhere else. So I still crashed there. She comes walking out of the bedroom. I'm just kind of waking up. He's got like a suit on and stuff. And I'm like, dude, what happened? Someone died or something? You going to a funeral? And he's like, I'm going to church. And I was like, what for? Why? Why would you do that? He's like, I found Jesus. I was like, I didn't know he was lost. I was such a punk. I don't know, Jesus, whatever. I was like, was he lost? I was just messing with him. He's like, no, I mean this, Shane. I found Jesus. Something happened to me. I've been born again. Like, you have not. I was like, whatever. It'll pass. You're cool. It's a phase. I didn't even roll back over and went to sleep. And this man changed. I'm talking about, he became a different human. Like, he would just sit in his chair after dinner when I was just there with his Bible and just tell me about Jesus and weep. He became and he's telling me about Jesus all the time, man. And I'm like, I believe you, John. I mean, I believe you believe that. I want nothing to do with it, man. Like, I'm not gonna, because he would talk to me about it, and I'd be like, so what? So then you got to change your life, and you try to explain as best you could as a new believer. Like, I don't think you got to change your life. I think you want to. Like, I don't want to. Yeah, I got stuff to do, man. I'm not for me. And so, but he was there. You know what I mean? And so I'm 16, I'm 17, I'm getting worse and worse and worse. He's there, always loving me, always let me flop on the couch, right? Just in my life. So I just had that there, right? And so when I was early 20s, my wife and I, well, she's my fiance, right? So there's this other person named Vicky that you guys hear all about. So we started dating on and off because it sounds a little more romantic than I think it was. You know what I mean? Oh, you guys are high school sweethearts, and that's sweet. Yeah. Well, we did start dating when I was like 14, but I was not a good guy, right? So there was many times we broke. You know what I mean? Like, it was whatever, man. But nonetheless, she kind of came to faith herself. I didn't know it. Yeah, like her junior or senior year of high school. She had a Young Life thing she went to, so she received Jesus. She had no grid for any of this, but she knew something real happened to her. I could tell something was different. Like, she didn't want to have sex and stuff, and she'd feel guilty. Like, what do you like those conversations are like, what do you mean you feel guilty? What, like, when she was trying to change. I didn't know, though, and obviously I wasn't helpful to her, but she was trying to change. But even beyond that, she wasn't like me. Like, she was on a roll, homecoming queen, huge high school, 2,000-3,000 people, homecoming queen, prom queen, like scholarships to the UW, right?
You weren't on a roll?
I was on a roll. I didn't even go to school, man. Like whatever. I showed up in school. I was the guy they just want to get you through there so you don't come back. You know what I mean? They'd be like, if you just go to class a couple times a week, we'll get you out of here.
Past it. We can't have
I don't want you back here. So we're very different. But she just, I ask her sometimes, like, what? How? She's like, I don't know. I just saw something in there. You know, so we loved each other. It was broken, but we loved each other. So she rode this thing out with me. And she didn't actually know how bad I was, right? I almost had two lives, like, cause she's the only thing that kept me. Like, if she hadn't been in my life, I'd have went the whole way. But she was good, right? She was good, and if she hadn't been there, I would have gone completely to the dark side, right? So she kept me with one foot in reality. And wanting to try to at least be a decent human being is best I can say. So she didn't know I was doing coke and like all this. She knew I was a pothead and I drank like a beast, but she didn't know the depths of what I did when I wasn't with her. So anyway, I got to be early 20s, and I had proposed to her, and she said yes, which is insane, but she did. And so we're 6 months away from getting married. And I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I can't remember. It's all a blur in a sermon recently. I was managing a sub shop downtown Madison. It was Big Mike Super Subs, and then it became Melio's, Jimmy John's up here, their cousins and whatever. So I'm managing the sub shop, and I got done working at like 11 o'clock on a Thursday night or something. Had my check. Just cashed it in the till, and the guy actually paid us pretty well. I got $600-700 cash in my pocket. There's a bar. It's called Spectators in downtown Mad, right next door. And so I met some friends there, drank till bar time. At bar time, we're hammered. We go buy 8-ball, just a bag of Coke. We just up all night doing Coke. I hit the bars on the east side of Madison next morning, drink all day. And I remember it because I was supposed to be with Vicky at this church that we were doing premarital counseling at. So obviously I'm calling everybody, I ain't gonna make it, right? That kind of thing. I don't remember lots of it, but it was one of those deals. It turned into like a 48-hour just binge, right? Coke, drinking. And so at the end of it, I remember bits and pieces of it. It was a blizzard. It was in January, so it was a blizzard. I got this 88 Cutlass with rear-wheel drive. Me and this guy, he lives on the north side of Madison. So he drives to his house, because I'm no shape to drive, but then I'm at his house, and I got to get all the way back over to the east side of Madison to get to where Vicky is. I don't remember much of it, but I made it. I made it there. And she just put me to sleep. And it's middle of the day. I don't even know what time, I don't remember those things. Anyway, I crashed for the day. I wake up. It's her mom's house. She's a UW student, but it's break, so she's there. So I'm in her bedroom sleeping. I wake up and it's dark. You know what I mean? It's nighttime. It's winter. I don't even know what time it is. It takes me some time to even I don't know hopefully you've never lived like that, but if you have lived like that, I'm just like trying to piece stuff together. You don't remember much. Like, what did I do? Did I get in trouble? You're just kind of the panic of like blackout, like what happened? And I'm like, okay. And I reached in my pockets, my cash. I got crumpled up dollar bills left. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such an idiot. All that shame just comes on you. And then I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, it's Vicky's birthday today. So I remember, so the reason it sticks is because it was January 13th, 1991, Vicky's 21st birthday. And we're 6 months away from getting married. As I'm sitting in this bedroom, I have a present for her. I have a card for her. I have any money to take her out to dinner. I'm sick. I couldn't go, and I'm just sitting there on the edge of her bed in this dark room. And I just have this, I'm just like, dude, you are a loser. And I'm just feeling the shame of all of it. And a thought comes into my head. I couldn't have told you it was God. I don't know. It was just this thought. And the thought was, you will be just like your dad. You will repeat the cycle. This girl loves you. Just like your mom loved your dad, you're going to wreck her life, and you'll do to your children the things your dad did to you. And I was broken, like, for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't want to hurt Vicky. I had hurt her many times, not physically, But I had hurt her many times already, and I didn't want to hurt her. She's the only good thing in my life. I don't want to hurt this girl. I don't want to do that to her, and I definitely don't want to do to my kids what my dad did to me. And I don't even know what to do, but it's clear to me you're going to be just like, you're already like him. It's going to repeat itself. And so I don't know what to do. So I'm just sitting on the edge of the bed, and I just looked at my first prayer. It was my first like real prayer ever in my life. I just looked at the ceiling. I said, God, if you're real, if all that stuff John's been telling me is true, and you can fix me somehow, you can make me not like this, do it. Amen. I'm in. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed, I don't even know how to fix myself. I don't know how to begin to be functional, right? So I'm just like, if you can make me not so messed up so I don't hurt her or my kids, like, please do it. Yeah. Amen. But then I added an appendum to the prayer. And the appendum to the prayer was, but you got 30 days. And I'm not encouraging anyone to ever do this. Because I've always been real. I can't fake stuff. You know what I mean? And so I'm talking to this God. I don't even know if I believe he's real at this point. But I'm like, if you're real, you got to show me. I'm too jacked. I'm too messed up. If you're not real, it's not going to work. Like the idea that you're going to be some make-believe crutch I use to become a better person. We both know if you're real, that's not going to work. I got to know you're real. I got to know this is real. So I'll give you 30 days to show me that you're real. And here's what I'll do. Yeah, I'm having this conversation with a God I don't even know is real, but I'm saying I'll read that Bible, because John gave me a Bible. So I'll read the Bible every day for 30 days. I'll go to that. It was this crazy Pentecostal church that he was a part of. I'll go to that church every time the doors are open for the next 30 days, and I won't drink or do drugs for 30 days. But you got to show up. And it was real. I'm checking, like, I did it like day 1, day 2, day 3, and it was hard not drinking and doing drugs. Yeah. But I'm reading my Bible, and so he had told me, read the book of John and the book of Proverbs. He's like, Proverbs are going to really speak to you. I'm like, okay, whatever, I don't know. So I don't really know much about any of that stuff, but I'm reading Proverbs, and I'm like, yeah, that's real. The wine, the women, yeah, man, that's, whoa, yeah. Well, I've lived that, the fighting, all that, yeah. I'm like, this is in the Bible? Like, but then I was reading the book of John, and I don't know. I'm reading about Jesus, and I'm like, this guy's awesome. Like, I'm falling in love with, I don't know he's God, but as a man, I'm like, this guy is awesome. I'm imagining the stories. Peter's the burly, beer-drinking fisherman kind of dude, and Jesus walks up, drop your nets and follow me. He just does. I'm like, what? So his interaction with people, his love for people, touching lepers and these prostitutes flocking to him. This guy is awesome. So he's becoming like a hero. I don't know, he's God, he's this, he's that. Just as a dude, though, I'm like, this guy is awesome. So Jesus, I'm thinking he's super cool. Book of Proverbs, that's real. But that's it, right? So as this 30 days is unfolding, though, my fiance, Vicky, she has started going to this college and career group. The crazy Pentecostal church had a college and career group on the UW campus. So she has just started going to on her own, aside from anything that's happening with me. She's just been doing this because she's trying to figure her thing out with God, right? She doesn't know anything either. So I'm letting her know about my 30-day deal. So she says to me, you should come to this college and career group with me. And I say, well, I don't go to college. I don't have a career. I don't want to. She's like, and basically it was that you said anything.
Yeah.
I go. So I go, and it's like 150 like kids at the UW that grew up in Pentecostal churches, right? I mean, squeaky clean, all of this stuff. I got long, I'm just, right? I walked in and it was like, oh my gosh, they were like, we got a live one, right? Like I'm just like, whoa, you guys, I just like, and so I went and it was weird. And so I'm like, whatever. So the next week I go again, I'm still doing my deal and checking my thing, not drinking, not doing drugs, reading that Bible. So I go back the second week, and these dudes come up to me, and they're like, "Hey, brother." They called me brother, and which was funny. So I'm like, "I'm not your brother," and I'm definitely not your brother, man. Like, God, that was weird, man. Like you forget how it feels for an unbeliever walking into a church or a group, and they say to me, "Hey, brother, the Lord, we're going on a retreat. It's Thursday. The retreat's the next day. We're on a retreat this weekend." And we feel like the Lord wants you to come with us. This is what they said to me. I laughed out loud. I'm like, I ain't going to the woods with you. Lord didn't tell me that, man. I ain't like Kumbaya and Kool-Aid. You think I'm going to the woods with you guys? There's no way I'm going to the woods with you guys. Like, that's no. And again, I don't honestly remember if it was Vicky just nudging me or just a thought, but it was you you said anything. I was like, I did say anything. That was the deal. Like, that was the deal. So I'm like, all right, I'll go. Vicky's like, really? I'm like, yeah, we'll go. So we go and walk into this out in the woods, everything. Friday night, it starts. I walk in. You guys are young, so you don't even remember this stuff. It was overhead projectors, right? Words, choruses on the thing, and dude, there's acoustic and tambourines. And these are Pentecostals, man. They're going, going hard. And I'm just like, these people are freaks, man. But the worship's happening, and I got my jean jacket on, my Marbreds right here, hair long enough to cover my face, and I'm just like, I'm not being moved. I'm just like, I said I'd do it as I'm here. But I'm looking up at the overhead thing as they're singing, and I'm looking at the words, and every time they would sing God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Jesus, I obviously did not know any of those are direct names for God. I didn't know. But my heart's pounding, my lips quivering, I'm feeling these emotions, and I'm wanting to cry. And I'm just fighting all of it because I'm thinking to myself, I cry in this room with these people, they're going to think they got me. Yeah. They're going to think I'm one of them, and I'm like, I'm fighting all these emotions. And then it was almost like, before I know it, my hands are in the air, and the tears are streaming down my face. And it's like, I can't even explain it. Like, scales fell off my eyes. Mm-hmm. Like, this is real. He died on a cross for you. I don't even have good words for it other than it hit me, because my first real prayer was, if you could fix me, do it. There was never a thought like he would want me, he loved me. Why would he? Like, if God's real, I'm just whatever. There was none of that. And it was this moment of, you love me. You love me. You died on a cross for me. You don't want to just fix me. You want a relationship with me? You died for me so I could be forgiven after all I've done? That's how you feel about me? It was this moment of revelation. I can't even explain it, but I knew it. He loves me. He doesn't want to fix me. He loves me. He died for me. He wants to forgive me and cleanse me. And I'm just in a moment. I'm like, I'm in. 100%. And it was just that simple. And so from that moment on, man, if you feel that way about me after all the stuff I did, what do you want to do? I am yours for the rest of my days. Let's go. Here I am.
That's beautiful.
That's it. That's the story, man. And the rest is here I am.
That's so awesome. And it is tough to describe it to people. That's so funny because there's some similarities between yours and mine. Now, not necessarily, I do not have that checkered of a past, but like the scales falling off the eyes, because that's what happened. That we opened the podcast episode with that story of when I got saved at your church, our church now. But the same thing happened, because I remember it, because I'm going by myself. My mom and sister, they go there, but they weren't going. I was, sometimes, because I didn't even have a car, I was walking there from my dad's house. They didn't go to church. And I was walking there, going there by myself. So I'm sitting next to these people. I have no idea who they are. I just remember, same thing, weeping during worship. And I was embarrassed. Again, I didn't know anything about church. So same thing. I'm sitting there. I put my head down to the ground because I go, oh my gosh, these people are going to think I'm so weird. I don't think you're supposed to cry at this stuff. But then the same thing of when Jesus revealed himself to me, it is what the Bible says, that the veil has been torn from my eyes. And it was like that weird thing of, you can't describe it unless you've experienced it. It was like colors were brighter. Yeah, everything of my whole like childhood, everything like rushes in, right? Like you have like water, like a hole in this big sink goes down and the water rushes in. Everything from my childhood and maybe what's going to be my future just rushes in, and everything I get it.
Yep.
That's like the revelation of when Jesus shows up. But then what's so funny is, like, a few months earlier, the first encounter I had with God was they navigators or whatever at the University of Kansas came and found me. You want to go to this thing in the woods? I said yes. No idea why. Going out to the woods with these weirdos.
Keegan in the woods.
Let's go together. Is that the thing they just used to do, retreats or something?
Something like that. I mean, they said we're going to play football, so that's like woods, weirdos, football. I'll play some football. But same thing. Then all of a sudden, I had that moment of, God, if you are real, not me. There's no way you would love me. And then the thought, now I think it's God. It's okay. I love you no matter what. And then I found the old guy there, because I go, you're old. You got to know what you're talking about. I said, can God talk? And if he did, would this be it? So, so funny, man. So if people want to get saved, apparently you go to the woods and then you cry in worship.
Find some weird Christians, go in the woods with them.
That's awesome. So then after that, you got saved. How long was it before you got your start in ministry?
It was 4 years, 3 or 4 years later. What happened is I went to Bible college, not because I wanted to be a pastor. I wasn't thinking thoughts like that. Vicky we got married. She had a year left of UW. She finished, and I couldn't go to college if I wanted to. I didn't take a SAT, ACT, graduate like a 1.4 GPA from East High School, so it wasn't like I was college material. But I wanted to learn about the Bible. I was telling everyone that moved about Jesus, right? Filling up rows at a church. And I didn't even know what I was talking about. So I wanted to learn. I just wanted to take some time to learn. And so the church I got saved in had 2 Bible colleges, like 1,000 churches. They have their own associations. So they have 2 different Bible colleges. So they basically pulled some strings to get me in. I got told my story, and they're like, yeah, we'll take a shot on this kid. What the heck? So I went to Bible college in 1992. It was, I was 22. And so, and it's the first time I ever read a book, like cover to cover, in my whole life. I'm not exaggerating. And that's where I realized, wow, there's something in there. And these teachers and professors would sit me down, like, you got a gift. I'm like, really? So, so I'm just learning as I go, and 4.0 GPAs. I loved it. But again, it wasn't. I wasn't thinking I didn't think guys like me could be pastors. It wasn't like that. I just wanted to learn. I figured I'd do this for a couple of years, and I go get a job because I just can tell people about Jesus, but I'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm like a year and a half into this Bible college. My wife had gotten pregnant because she wanted to have a baby the moment we got married. She just always wanted to be a mom, right? And I'm like, I should finish this school up. She's like, it'll be fine. What are we going to? It'll be like, all right. And what are you going to do when your wife wants a baby? You're going to have a baby. And so she's pregnant. I'm a year and a half in. So I just started I took like 21 credits my last semester, just so I could have an associate's degree in Christian studies or whatever it was. And I'm looking for a job. We'll move back to Madison. I'll get a job. I was a custodian in the school district down there in Chicago where I was going to school. I loved it. Figured I'd just go back to Madison, get a custodian in the school district, something like that. Just told people about Jesus and whatever. So, but the guy that basically discipled me right after I got saved, he was the college and career pastor of that group. His name's Tom Flaherty. He had become a senior pastor during that time in this Pentecostal church in Boston, Minnesota. And I knew that. We still talked all the time. But he calls me one day as I'm wrapping up Bible school, and me and Vicky are getting ready to go back to Madison, with baby, and I'll get a job and get back to life. He says, this is going to sound crazy, but I've been up here for a couple of years. I need an associate pastor. They had 5 or 6 guys up here. No one's fit. No one works. And Shane, I know this is going to sound crazy. God keeps putting your name in my heart. You don't fit here. This town is smaller than the high school you went to. You don't fit in any way. None of it makes sense. But God just putting you on my heart, man. Like, how does that land with you? I said, wow, Vicky's pregnant. I got to have a job. And if I was ever going to be in ministry, I'd want to do with you. Yeah, what the heck, man? It was like that for me. Like, I guess, what the heck? So then he says, so that's how it started. That's how the process started. Yeah, I went up and met their elders, the whole thing. And they were just like, yeah, man. I was like, you guys are crazy. That's what my whole story, And so that's how ministry started.
Good old Boston, Minnesota, the glory land.
So at what point, Shane, did you go from just kind of going with the flow of what's next to actually having a vision for what you've done now?
So I'd been there for about a year or year and a half as the associate pastor. But a lot of what I did was with youth, and there was like 5 or 10 people in the youth group I got there that blew up, 50, 60, 70. It was just, God just, and so I'm starting to try, I'm just trying to figure stuff out. Like, there's a call here, maybe there's I don't know. And I had a dream one night. In the dream, I was back in Madison, place I used to work, and telling the people I'm here to start a church. Just a simple dream. I woke up. I didn't think anything of it. I just wanted to do my thing. Next night, I had the exact same dream. And so I'd say to my wife, like, this is weird. I had 2, just exact same, like, And she's like, oh, I can see that. I'm like, you're crazy. Because we were leading people to Jesus in Madison all the time with friends, family, and they'd never fit in a church, And so she's like, well, all those people. And I'm like, no, I can't. I can't hardly do this, right? That's a terrible idea. And the next night, 3 nights, I had the exact same dream. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? So, but I'm about submission to authority, right? Like, and Tom's my pastor. So I go over he's in his office that morning, and I stick my head in his office, and I just say, hey, Tom, do you think I'm ready to be a senior pastor? I don't know what I said. I said, do you think I'm 23 or something? I don't know, 24. I'm young. And I've only been a believer for like 4 or 5 years, I say, do you think I'm called to be a senior pastor? And if so, do you think I'm ready to be one? He laughs. He's reading his Bible. He's like, no. He's like, you're wrecking church. You're wrecking. I was in trouble all the time with this church, right? Because I don't know. I'm just whatever. He's like, you're wrecking church. You're wrecking this one. There's no way. I'm like, okay, thanks. But, I'm done. He just said no. He's my guy. I'll close it. He said, whoa. Bro. That's his word. Bro, why are you asking me that? He's like, there's a reason you're asking me. I just had this dream. He's like, tell me about the dream. I tell him. He's like, you've had that 3 nights in a row? Same exact dream. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, Shane, you got to pay attention to that. Like, you planting a church in Madison where you're from, very different. Like, Shane, that might be God. You can't ignore that. So I just put this fleece out. Like, I need worship guy, I need this. And like within, it was like that. It got to the point where my wife and I were like, if we don't do this, it's just because I'm too scared. I thought it was a terrible idea. Like, Lord, this is a terrible idea. I don't know what I'm, like, it was but that's how it started. It just got to the point where if we don't do this, we're going to feel like I'm just afraid. So she had Brooke. So we got Max was 2. Brooke's a brand new baby. We loaded him up in a U-Haul and just went back to Madison and got a few people and told them a story. And they're like, let's do it. And there's 8 or 10 of us. And we're clueless, man. I mean, clueless. And, but there was a very clear vision to bring a message of mercy to Madison. There was a very clear vision. If we're going to do this, it's about mercy. We're going to bring mercy to Madison, and we're going to do church. This was in the 90s. Like what you guys see at First Free, that's everywhere now. It was nowhere back then. So in my mind, there's how do you reach people like I used to be, who they maybe want to go to church? How do we get all the crap, the religious crap out of the way so they can just see Jesus because he's beautiful? Like I knew that. Like I don't know anything, but I know if people see Jesus, they're going to love him. So how do you get all the crap out of the way? And so let's not pass the hat and all that nonsense. We'll just put a box in the back people want to give. We'll give them free food. We'll give them free donuts and coffee. We'll have lights out rock and roll music because why does the church have such horrible music? Right? So that was the picture.
Yeah.
And we're clueless. And, like within 10 years, that group of 8 or 10 people was 1,400 people in Madison, which at the time was called the Church Planters Graveyard. It's Madison, man. And 1,000+ people got and they didn't grow up in the church like up here. Everyone grew up in church and got confirmed or something. Wasn't like that at all. These were out of darkness into light. It was a miracle. It was this miraculous move of God that happened in Madison. That's how that started.
So what does it look like to do a church plant? Because people just throw it out there, but like to really plant a church. Okay, I'm going to go to the city and just start a church.
It's death.
You know what I mean? Like
it's death. I quit every week. It was horrible. It's hard. I mean, you're like, it's got to be about him. You know what I mean? It's just got to be about Jesus. Like, I love you. I'm doing this because of you. It's got to be. And your motive just has to be him, just being obedient to him and loving him and trusting him because it's really hard. There's no one there, man. It's hard. You're plowing ground that's never been plowed. You're just trying to walk in faithfulness and so everything I did planting that church, it was wrong. Like it shouldn't have worked. I learned a ton, and I've helped church planters. I've led church planting movements. I've planted other churches just because you got to document what happened, and learn from your mistakes. And so I've learned how to plant churches, and I've helped many people since then plant a church. But when we were doing it, it was build the ship at sea. We didn't know we were young, clueless. We didn't know what we were doing. But it's hard. You got to get a group of people to buy into a vision, man. And then you got to have that group of people. I have the same DNA, because you're creating a culture, right? So I knew a few things. I don't want to reach religious people because that will wreck it. So we called it Mad City Church because Madison's called the Mad City. And I didn't know a lot, but I knew that would probably keep religious people away because I didn't want to reach church people. And so so there's a group of people that bought into that vision, right? You got to have that because you're creating a culture, whether it's a business or a church, you're creating a culture. And people get, and that church grew to 400 people because of the culture that was created, because of the love and the culture. You can ask anyone that was there in those days. Kirk Guest, works at First Free Night. He was part of it. I didn't even know how to preach. I really, that church, it got to be about 400. I started preaching through books. I didn't know what to do. So I finally started preaching through books of the Bible. And it was about 400 people. We're 3-4 years in. And one day we were all like, man, Shane, you got a gift. So you think so? Like, yeah. You know what? We just kind of all discovered it together. But they didn't grow to 400 because I was a great preacher. It was a culture that was created. And I just kind of stumbled into that by doing it. So.
So you brought this up a little bit, but nowadays, church is so much different. People are planting churches and wanting this big thing. But you said it like, I did everything wrong, and it grew because, A, it's about Jesus, and it was something that he actually called.
Yeah.
Right? And so everybody talks about calling, and sometimes people feel like, oh, I feel like this is my calling, and it's like, because you just want a platform, right? And I've talked to so many people of, A, I respect you so much, but also knowing you personally, it's like you walk the walk. Like it's real. I'm not putting on a show. I'm not trying to gain followers as a guy talking on a podcast right now. Like I'm not trying to do anything. Like it's legitimate and it's real. And so I say there's a whole difference between if I go to a service, if somebody's a really good teacher, they can motivate me and they can encourage me. When it's real and about Jesus and the Holy Spirit breathes on something, it'll change my whole life. And that's authority, which is only really given by God. There's good speakers, right? But this authority that I believe God's placed on your life is way different. Like, can you talk about, like, in this world of American church and American Christianity, if you will, like this drive for, like, ego and, excuse my French, like, prostituting the pulpit. Like, this thing gives me a platform so I can be cool.
Yeah.
And usually what happens, and we're seeing it a little bit, is people are falling and getting wrecked because it starts to become, I'm the main character of the story, and God, I use Jesus to get influence.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to be an influencer, be cool, as opposed to not everybody's called to be a preacher. Not everyone's called to be a pastor.
Yeah.
Not everybody's called to plant a church. And I'm not doing it to be cool. It's because I can't say no.
Yeah.
So just talk about that a little bit.
Well, direct me because I could go a lot of ways with that.
Go wherever your heart feels.
It's we're seeing it more than a little bit. We're seeing a lot of guys.
I was trying to be nice.
We're seeing a lot of guys blow up. Good guys, friends of mine. Guys I know in ministry. See, I don't know how this applies. I know a lot of your audience is business people. I don't know how they get apply that however they want. But like church, Christian, especially big church stuff. It's there's pros and cons to it, but one of the cons to like big church platforms, having a microphone, people watching your sermons, all that kind of stuff, is it can be a breeding ground for narcissists. It just can. What I mean is like the platform you're provided in the church world, even in a small church, but it gets big. It's heady wine, man. Because like because it can like, just because someone's got a gift, some charisma about them, they're good with the microphone, know the Bible good, doesn't necessarily mean they're called by Jesus to be doing it. They could be motivated by their own brokenness, their own narcissism, their own desire to be needed and wanted, right? And so that it's just the culture of it. You're on a microphone, everyone's looking at you. It can be so easily be about you and feeding you instead of you being in it because you feel like God's asked you to do it and it's about them. It can become about you. And if it is, it's usually a matter of time before, like, whatever. Bad things are going to happen, man. And so my posture, I don't want to make it like I'm better or worse, or it's just, I'm different. I didn't want to be a pastor. And I wouldn't be one. You know what I mean? It's not like I was like, I was kicking and screaming. I didn't want to plant I didn't want to plant a church. Working with Tom as a youth pastor, that's fun. I didn't want to plant a church. I didn't want to move to La Crosse 13 years ago. Like I told the Lord, that's a bad idea. Like I'm going to wreck that place. And
you have.
I have. I'm just kidding. Lots of people would say that. You did wreck it. So just for me, it's just like, my life's not my own. It's what I said to him the moment I saw the beauty of, yours. Whatever you want to do, let's do it. And so I don't agree with him often. You know, we don't agree about a lot of things. I'm a part of, you know, all the stuff that's happening down at IHOP right now. I don't think I should be. But God and I often disagree. But I just want to be obedient to him. And so that's me. Jesus, John 5:19. Jesus only did what the Father was doing. You know, I just want. What do you want me to do? I'll do that. But I don't want to do anything he's not asking me to do. I don't want to be reaching for influence he doesn't want me to have. He shouldn't be accountable for all of those things. And so, you know, David, King David, you guys have heard me talk about. I love David for so many reasons. He's a dude. I identify with him. David's the greatest king Israel ever saw. Now, we could talk about all David's flaws, and he had a bunch of them, which is actually encouraging because God uses weak, broken, messed up people because that's all he's got is us. But David was called the man after God's own heart. You know what I mean? He just wanted... And what I mean by that is, like, if you study David's life, he's the greatest king Israel ever saw, second to none, right? David didn't want to be king, though. David didn't ask to be king. David wasn't trying to be king. David is this dude with his harp out in the wilderness, just worshiping God.
The woods.
In the woods. And God looked down and said, you know what? I can trust that guy. I've said this to hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, and you got to explain it. It can sound weird, but if God wants you to be king, you'll be king. He knows your address. He found David on the backside of the desert. He's out there. He found him. He knows where you live. If he wants you to do something, he'll get you. So you don't have to reach for it. You have to strive for it. The ambition that you see in the church world, especially if you get around the famous people, which I know lots of these people, right? But hung out with them. Like it's palpable. The desire for a platform, wanting to get close to the popular people because they can open doors for you. It's just, I don't have a good theological word for it. It's just gross.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gross. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question well, but for me, I just want to be obedient to G. And the other thing is, like, the reward is him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, I'll do what he wants me to do as long as he wants to do it. If he wants me to pastor a church of 50 or 15, I don't care about that stuff because the reward is Jesus. It's him. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not just saying that. Like, he's not asking us, any of us, business, pastors, to do stuff for him, like we're working for him. It's just about him. Like, he's the reward. Like, if I have intimacy with him and I feel connected with Jesus, I don't care about that. I'll do whatever you want me to do. But if you don't have that, if he's not the reward, if the success or the fruit is the reward, then you're never going to be satisfied. It's never going to be enough. I mean, hundreds of people over the years, because for whatever reason, the things that the Lord has asked me to do in ministry have grown. Right? Like, First Free Church at one time was one of the fastest growing churches in America, and blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. So because of that, you get invited. People want you to teach them. Come to my church, look at what we're doing, help us figure out how we could grow. Or church planters. When I was in Madison, they always come to find me because that you can't plant a church in Madison that works, right? So I remember so many conversations, whether it's a church planter or a young pastor. Church planter wanting to plant a church, he wants me to help him plant a church. Pastor of a church of 100, he wants it to be 200 or 400 or whatever. The question I always ask is why? Why? Mm-hmm. Why do you want to plant a church? Or why do you want your church to grow? Why? Do you think you're going to feel better about yourself because your church goes from 200 to 400? Because you're not. You're still going to be you. I pastored churches of 15. I've pastored church, First Freeze, 3, 4, I don't even know. But everything in between. I've spoken on platforms in front of 50 people and thousands of people. All that stuff. None of it. You're still you. You know what I mean? Like, like what you long for isn't that. What you long for is him, and what he wants is intimacy with you. And if you have that, you're good. If you don't, you're dangerous because it's about you trying to get something for you. So that's me. I don't want to be careful. Like, I'm being critical of other people. It's not my heart. Just for me, that's my heart in this thing. I just want Jesus, man. If he wants me to do stuff, I'm going to do it. Because we all have to be obedient. If he wants you to do a podcast, you better do that podcast. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're disciples. But as long as he's the reward, if you're in this for influence, if you're in this for a platform, and that's subtle, man. You know what I mean? Because you can use spiritual language. You can deceive yourself. That's why you got to You got to know your own motives, because especially in the church world, it's just about the kingdom. Well, is it? Or is it about your kingdom? You know what I mean? Like, so it's motives. You got to search them.
It's that fine line because we know the right answer to it, right? So you ask the person, why do you want to go from 50 to 100? Oh, because I want to reach more people.
Yep.
Sure you do. But we have to at some point just be honest with
But why?
ourselves.
Yeah, why? Even that, why? Where's your heart? What's your motive? Yep.
Shane, I know there's probably a whole sermon on this, but how does somebody recognize that calling, recognize like you had a very clear vision from God of what to do? How does somebody distinguish a calling from God and their own desires? Even if they're in alignment, right? If your desire is for him and to grow his kingdom, it may not necessarily be what he's calling you to do right now. So how do you distinguish those two?
How do you distinguish? I just want to make sure, because that's a good question. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you, though. How do you distinguish between what you want and what God wants?
Even if what you want is for God, how do you distinguish those two?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a psalm, I'm blanking on the exact reference, that says, love God with all of your heart and do as you please. So the best advice I can always give people is if you're seek first the kingdom, all those aren't like trite statements. Those are real. You know what I mean? Like if your heart is, what I want is Jesus. That's what I want. That's what I'm longing for. Seeking him, want to know him. He's the great reward for me. If you're in a place like that, then I just, because my story is a little unique, right? I had dreams and prophetic words and stuff like that. No, it's not like that for everyone. Mm-hmm. So you got to be going for him first and foremost. It's about him. It's about him. It's about him. It's about him. And from that place, I think then you just walk in those things that you feel like, because you don't know for sure. I think this might be God. Well, you walk in it. You know what I mean? And you start walking in those things that you think are him. You take one step at a time with him as you go. And as long as your heart stays in that place, I think you can trust it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Because not everyone's going to have a dream 3 nights in a row or get called out of a crowd from some guy and get a prophecy.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to trust our hearts. And as long as your heart is really his, and we got to be honest with ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, and like, I think it might have been John Calvin, but like the foundation for genuine growth in God is know yourself. Know yourself. Be honest with yourself and be honest with God. My heart, I want this to be pure. I want this to be about you, but you know me. I'm just a guy and there's bad motives in there. I still have those conversations with them, man. Like all these doors opening in front of me. I don't want to walk through them. Yeah. And unless he wants me to. And I'm like, but even if you want me to, would you please protect me? Because I'm just a guy. What if I get all caught up with that crap and then I start mistreating people because I'm getting intoxicated with my, I'm honest with them. Like, me. I'm not better than any of those guys. I could end up just as messed up. So I don't know if that's answering the question, but.
Yeah, that's good.
So then what, now switching gears a little bit, then what year did you grew that church, planted it, you worked there for 10 years? Or how long were you in Madison Church?
Madison, about 11, I think, before I...
And then was it directly from there? Came to First Free?
No, I spent 6 months with the Madison Police Department, and then I spent...
In jail, or can you smile?
That's a... So, well, it's basically what... There's lots of layers to that story of Mad City Church. And so I was 25 or 26 when we started it. Within 4 or 5 years, it's like 800 people. It was insane. Went from 400 to 800 one time in a year. There's like 3 or 4 of us as pastors. I didn't know what I was doing. We have elder. It just, and so the structure.
What were some, okay, I'm interrupting you in my own question.
Go ahead.
What were some crazy stories, right? Mad City Church, you don't know what you're doing. You got the staff. It's growing like crazy because of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So what were some cool stories, things of Jesus, like, getting people, arresting people's heart?
It was like it would be stuff like this. We were in this auditorium and it was 700 seats and it's packed. We do 2 services. It's packed. People we got to go. I go, no, we got to stay right here because if we go somewhere else, it might keep growing. We got to stay right here. I don't want this to get bigger. I'm dying. And so, but I can't even explain it. I could have yodeled for an hour. and then said, "Who wants to get saved?" And 50 people would have got saved. Here's one story that just jumps out at me. I learned, like you guys hear me preach and teach all the time. Like, that guy knows the Bible pretty good. Well, I learned by studying and preaching, right? That's how I learned. I mean, Bible school taught me how to study. That's all it taught me. And so I love to study. I'm like, what back then, like, I'm preaching the book of Romans. People are like, why? I don't learn the book of Romans. So that was us. That was me and Madison Church. We're learning together. I'm a step ahead of you guys. Here's what I'm learning. My preaching was almost more like that. Like, here's what I'm learning. I'm sharing with you guys. And so I get to Romans 9 through 11. I've never studied Romans 9 through 11. You guys have ever read Romans 9, 10, and 11? A little confusing, right? So I got the books out. I'm working my butt off. Probably put 40, 50 hours in. By the time I get up to preach that weekend, I don't know. I don't know. But like, our services were 45, 50 minutes of, I'm talking about lights out, blast your face off worship. Then I'd get up and preach. I just preached till I was done. Our service would be 2 hours plus. Shouldn't have worked, right? But did. And we did them twice on Sundays. And so I preached probably for an hour and 20 minutes on Romans 9 through 11. You guys, by the time I was done, I'm not even sure I know what I said. They're just all looking at me. None of us know what I just even, like, it was so, I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, sorry, you guys. Anyway, I just share the gospel real quick. But clear gospel. Like, that wasn't give fire insurance, raise a hand. It was like, you're ready to sacrifice your whole life for Jesus. You recognize you're a sinner. He died for your, it was just like, and I said, if that's you, I want you to raise it. Before I could say, I want you to, there was hands. I'm like, nope, put them down. Seriously, I go, put them down. I don't think you understood what I said. So I said it again, more clearly. This is going to cost you everything. He's going to ask you for your whole, like, I'm trying to make it hard. I'm like trying to talk them out of it, kind of. 70 people in both services or so, somewhere in there, raised a hand to, it was like that. People would ask me, I'd get invited to speak places. Would you come teach us about what you guys are doing? I'd be like, you'll be super frustrated. And they'll be, I don't know what we're doing. It's wrong. Like, our services are 2 hours long. I preached for an hour and plus out of the Bible. Like, we got Alpha, and we pray and fast all the time. We pray and fast, like, we don't know what we're doing, so we pray and fast all the time. God come. We have a prayer meeting every Tuesday night with hundreds of people crying out to God. We have all-night prayer meetings on Friday nights. We don't know what we're doing. I mean, Alpha's cool, but like, I just said it's like Jesus shows up. I can't explain it, and I'm not. That's all I could say. I don't know. It's just, there's times like we just all feel like Jesus is just walking up and down the aisles, man. He's touching people and he's doing stuff. It just, for some reason, feels like we got his attention. And he's showing up. And so the best advice I can give you is get Jesus there. Because if Jesus is there, beautiful things happen. If Jesus isn't there, you're just building your thing. And I don't want to build a thing. I want to have Jesus there. So, like, that's it. I mean,
that's one thing I've always liked about First Free is you guys preach verse by verse through the Bible instead of having a message and finding the verses that fit your message, which has been a lot of the previous churches that I've went to. So, yeah, as someone who attends church because you can't skip by it, right? And there's tough verses, and
that's right.
Not everybody likes that, but that is what it is. So
often they don't like
it. So you talked about, we were talking before about people differentiating between God's calling and your calling and people getting into ministry for selfish reasons. As somebody who's the head of a big organization now, how do you not let those people creep in to your organization?
Well, if they do, they're, probably won't last long.
Yeah.
It'll show itself. But best we can, and can't always, Mad City was like this too. Like Aaron for example. Aaron Lutenegger, freaky gifted worship leader, right? Well, I've been with Aaron. We've been together since he was 17 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I remember the first time he's leading worship up in the loft. We had another venue at the time. This kid's up there leading worship. I went up there and I was like, what the heck, God? Who's this kid, man? I just kept my eye on him. Like, this kid's got a gift. And he was doing it for free. He's just serving, man. He's just serving. Got to know him. And he grew up in our midst. He's like a son to me. So he's been our worship pastor for 10. So as best we can, you're just trying to find people, their heart's right. They do it for free. They're servants. They're not in it for them. They just want to serve his people. So as best we can, you just try to find those people that you know, man. You know them, you trust them. And so that's the best we can do, you know, if you corporate, because First Free Church is a mega church. There's not that many of them in the country. So usually I'm not saying that's a brag. It's just real.
Yeah.
So usually there's this corporate identity that churches have. It's corporate church. We're just not that. We're not that. Like, I mean, like, I don't, John Reiner maybe, but there's no one on my staff, pastors, maybe Steve, but for the most part, like, they're not seminary grads. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying seminary's bad. It's just that, like, a lot of times what happens is a guy grows up in the church. Maybe he's genuinely called by God. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's like, I'm going to be a pastor. So what do? Well, you go Bible college, you go seminary, and then you get what you get in seminary, and then you come out looking for a job. It's a career for them.
Yeah.
It's a career. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not looking for that. You know what I mean? Now, you could be that guy and be genuinely called by God and all that stuff, but for the most part, you're just looking for people that you think, man, they might really be called to this. And if you're a school teacher, man, God's got his hand on your life. I don't care if you got an MDiv. Yeah. We teach you that stuff. I'm looking at your heart. You know what I mean? Like, what's your heart? And is the hand of God on you? That's what I'm looking for. And obviously that's not a perfect science, but that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah.
So going back, you were a cop in Madison. We never got to that story, right?
I mean, I did their police academy. It was a
well, I just want
to,
because you made that comment.
I'm trained
I was
to
with
kill.
the police
I was
department
trained
for
to
6
kill.
months. It wasn't like, I did really good with Jesus, and then went on
we
another
did
6
get
month
off
bender.
that. I'm trained
You're
to kill.
cop.
Keep that in mind. Yeah. Well, so I burned out at Mad City Church. Like, that's the part I was saying. There's layers to that story. You know, I was preaching every week.
An hour and 20 minutes.
Hour, 20 minutes. Tuesday nights, we did a prayer meeting that I led. Like, so it was whatever. It turned into, it was me leading a prayer meeting Tuesday nights. I taught a class on Song of Songs all the time, a Bible study. 200-300 people would show up. That was every week. I did a wedding almost every weekend, because it was all young people, and they're getting saved, and half of them are living together. Like, we got to get this holy, man. You know, like, you got to get this holy, right? So almost every weekend I'm doing a wedding, and broken people are coming, man. I mean, broken. We don't know what we're doing, so we're trying to figure it out together. So this lasted for I didn't know what else to do, you know? So by the time I was 32 or 33, I started having all these health issues, panic attacks. Well, I didn't know they were panic attacks. We didn't know what was happening. I was in the hospital. They thought my heart was messed up. I mean, it was 3, 4, 5, 6 months of diagnostic. All these tests, they did not know what was wrong with me. It was bad though. And I started having these fierce panic attacks. I was speaking all over. I was up in Oshkosh one night speaking to 1,000 college kids for something. As I took the microphone, I have a full-blown panic attack.
Oh.
As I grabbed the microphone, and I had to preach. They said it was great. I don't even remember it. I remember driving home, though, my head out the window, with Vicky on the phone, just helping me get home. It was like, so it was bad, right? They didn't know what was wrong, though. And so at the end of it, they finally I had this thing called costochondritis. There were some physical things, but after all their tests, this doctor sat me down. He basically just said, you wrecked yourself. I mean, maybe I wrecked myself. You wrecked yourself. You wrecked yourself. Like, you've lived in ministry with 6 gears, right? You got a gear no one else has, right? I'm like, absolutely. And everyone would say that, right? 80, 90 hours a week, we're doing this. He's like, that's gone. That gear is gone. You try to reach for that anymore, you'll be dead by the time. I was like 32, 33. You'll be dead by the time you're 40. He said there's a burnout, there's a line called burnout, and then there's over here. You're over here. You destroyed your adrenal glands. You've wrecked yourself. If you don't learn to live different, you're going to be dead at a young age. And so you have to learn to live different. So I tried. They sent me on a sabbatical. I tried lots of different things. It just, it just didn't work anymore, you know. And the church was built on me, and I just got to the point where it was like, okay, if I'm gonna live, I got to step away from this. So the Madison Police Department, they recruited me. I knew some guys. It was just an off ramp from it kept me in Madison, and it was just an off ramp from Mad City Church. So Tom Flaherty, my pastor, he came and he took Mad City Church, and I went to hang out with the police department, and it was fun. It's not like I wanted to be I grew up wanting to be a cop, nothing like that. It was just, so here's a bunny trail. We can do bunny trails, right?
I love it. Well, name it bunny trail.
So when I was 41, 42, I'd been at First Free for a year or two, and I'm finally doing some counseling. Like I got to deal with some stuff, man. So there's a guy in Madison named Dr. Kevin Randall. It's called the Center for Christian Counseling. If you need counseling, go there. He's amazing. So Mad City Church, Kevin's practice basically grew up. A lot of it was because of Mad City Church, because we didn't know what to do with these people, man. We're like, so it was hilarious. You know, so hundreds and hundreds of people, like, just go to Dr. Randall, man. He can help you. I don't know what to do with you. And so I call him 41, 42, whatever it was. I'm like, Kevin, man, I think I got to start dealing with some stuff. He's like, finally. So as we're talking, he has a Christian psychiatrist and him, and they do all these tests on me, and they say, we're very concerned about you. I'm like, you and lots of people. He says you have a type T personality, and extreme ADHD. And
really?
Yeah, I was like, I laughed. I'm like, yeah, you know what? So, and like, okay, I didn't know what type T personality. I was a thrill seeker. And you're like, you can get addicted to your own adrenaline and stuff like, oh, I should have been dead many times. You know, like what they said though, they gave me the statistics on that specific personality type. And they said, guys like you don't live long, you know, because you're thrill seekers. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the concern? He's like, well, statistically speaking, you know, like 95% of the time, guys like you have had multiple affairs by your age. And they're like, and this is a safe place, Shane. I'm like, no, man, you guys like, no, like, no, really. I'm like, no, it's not my thing. Like, I love I am wildly attracted to. So it was hilarious because, you know, like, you guys, if I was having an affair, I'd tell you, it's just not my thing. But what they said is, have you ever thought about what you did? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you were so burned out that you had to step away from ministry for a season. And what did you do? Like, well, I want to be a cop. I'm like, yeah. For downtime? I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? That's pretty broken. I'm pretty messed up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's not good, right? So just whatever. So I did that for 6 months or 7 months or whatever. I can't remember. And then the head of it's Converge, Great Lakes Baptist. It used to be. It's Converge International now. They got thousands of churches. They asked me to come and head up their church planting, oversee the church planting for that denomination. So I did that for a while too.
And you used to be pretty ripped back then when you were a cop, right? What happened?
I got old, brother. I got old. Everything hurts now, man. That's what happened.
So then, how did you go from that to First? Like, I literally don't even know the story. Like, did First Free just call you up and say, "Hey, we're looking for a crazy man to come lead our church"?
Kinda. But what happened was, it was, again, because I'm broken, messed up, and I'm me, right? So supposed to be like getting my heart back, getting healing. So I'm not being a pastor, but I'm leading a church planting organization. I was helping a guy start a church in Milwaukee, and I was helping a group start a church in Madison. So I'm right back at it. I'm doing, it's again, like right back to 80 hours a week, all right, and running on fumes and just stupid, right? And so I'm driving to Milwaukee one Sunday morning. There's a church I was helping start, so I'd go speak for them once a month. And I'd speak for a church in Madison once a month and whatever. And I'm right back where I was. I'm just like, I'm gonna die, Lord. And he starts, and I have this thought, but it's time to surrender to being a pastor again. I didn't want to be a pastor again. I was like, I finally got out of it. I have to be a pastor again. I want to be a pastor again. I'll help guys plant churches. I'll whatever you want, but let's not do that. Not that. Come on, guys, let's not do that again. It's like that. That's where I was. And so I'm finally, but I'm running on fumes. I'm finally like, all right, this is really you. You want me to be a senior pastor again? Okay, I surrender. A thought comes into my mind. So clear, it's going to sound crazy, but it was so clear, I answered it out loud. The thought was, would you be willing to move? Again, it was so clear, I was like, where? Like, just talking to myself. I'm like, you are losing it, man. I have another thought. Lacrosse. Seriously, I'm like, I grew up in Madison and stuff, but I'd never been to lacrosse. I was like, I don't even know where that is. I don't know if it's 5,000 or 50,000.
What's crazy is he actually had said to you, the cross.
And I just missed it. So I didn't even need to be here.
You're like, wait, at the foot of lacrosse. It's French.
It was, that's funny. It was so real though. But I just was like, I didn't even have emotional bandwidth for it. You know what I mean? I was like, God, maybe I'm just getting weird. If that's you, confirm it today. If you don't, I'm not thinking about it again because I don't even have the energy for it. Amen. End of the prayer. I go preach at this church. I get done preaching. I've forgotten all about it. I get done preaching. I'm leaving. This lady comes with me. She grabs me. It's actually, there's a Milwaukee brewer named Jimmy Gantner from when I was a kid. It's his ex-wife. She grabs me and she says, hey, Shane, this is sound weird, but have you ever thought about moving? And I started laughing. I go, not till a couple hours ago, just kind of messing around. I'm like, why? She says, well, because my sister, she's at this church. Their pastor's been left like a year ago, and they've been looking for a pastor, and your name keeps coming. I'm like, they kind of think you might be their guy. And I was like, really? And I'm like, okay. And she's like, would you be open to moving? I'm like, God can do anything. So I said, God's God. I'd do whatever God wanted. Where is this place? She's like, it's right outside of La Crosse. I'm like, oh. All I said is, well, God's God. Amen. Just walked away from her. I said, God's God. I don't get it. So I go home. I get home back to Madison where we're living. Me and my wife go for a walk. I tell her the story. She's like, she's almost mad. She's like, I don't want to move. We got kids. I'm like, I'm just telling you a story. This is just a story. This just happened. I'm just giving you facts about things that just happened in my life. I'm not putting my resume on pastor.com. I had never applied for a job. I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you a story. That's it. Just a story. She's like, okay. So I'm back to my business, doing church planting stuff. Like as a month later, 2 months later, get a phone call from a headhunting company for churches, a shepherd staff, or which I used to get those a lot when I wasn't being a pastor because people knew about Mad City Church. It was kind of a big thing back then. So I get job offers all the time. Come pastor this church, come back. Nope. And so this guy calls and he says, hey, there's a church that's interested in you. I'm like, yep, nope. He's like, what'd you say? I knew some of these guys at this point. He's like, well, let me tell you about it. I go, okay, go ahead. He says, he's what he says. He goes, it's a 110-year-old evangelical free church. I stopped him. Like, okay, stop. I'm laughing. I'm like, dude, I am not your guy. Like, I will wreck the place. And I'll mean to. Like, I'm like, I don't own khakis, man. I don't have an MDiv. I don't want an MDiv. I pray I'm with the Apostle Paul. I pray in tongues more than you all. I'm charismatic, believe in the gifts. I think women can do stuff that men can do. I'm not a Calvinist. Like, I know the Eve free. I am not their guy. They might think that, but I'm not. He starts laughing and he's like, Shane, they know you from Mad City Church. They actually think you are their guy. They feel like it's time for a new season for them and you're their. I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Tell them no. Tell them I'll wreck stuff. I'm just doing all that. I so finally go, where is this place anyway? He's like, have you ever heard of La Crosse, Wisconsin? I'm like, no way. I'm like, yeah, I have. So it's like one of those so we start the process with these guys, and I made it hard for them. I made it as hard as I could. Same thing. It was the same thing. Vicky and I got to a place where we looked each other in the eyes. Like, if we don't do this, is God. If we don't do this, and not like we have to. If we don't do this, though, it's just because we don't want to. And so that's how I ended up at First Free Church.
That's awesome. Okay, so to end us, last question would just be, you've talked about like your message, and obviously you've had different visions and stuff for different areas of your life. You had it for Mad City Church. You have it for First Free. Like, to people who don't go to First Free, what is your vision or kind of like heart of, like, this is my heart for God's people. Like, this is how I believe, like, Jesus loves us this much. This is how I believe Jesus, like, thinks about you, feels about you. I know because I go there. I hear it all the time. Just of, like, shame, guilt, condemnation, these things that we just feel so much in society. Like, if you could do, like, a short little, like, your core message.
Sure.
Of, like, what Jesus has taught you in life.
Oh, I mean, my core message is, well, first of all, like, it seemed like there was maybe more than one question in there. Like, you talked about vision. You just mean, like, my vision. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to make sure I answer your question right.
No,
like,
you're right.
Vision for the church, or just, you know
that's
what I mean?
that's called undiagnosed ADD as well.
That's why I heard it. I'm tracking with you, so I just want to make sure I'm answering the. I know how it works. What do you?
all 6 questions that I framed into one. There were some commas in there. I said the word vision, but I probably didn't use it properly. But just your core message to end, like, the listeners off, like, to end it, like,
Yeah, man, it's on. You see it on the sign driving in. You see it in the place. Just come as you are. Come as you are. That's it, man. Come as you are. Jesus, it takes you as you are. You can only come to Jesus as you are, and He's ridiculous. He's awesome. He's the coolest human. He's the God man. He's glorious. He loves you, and He invites us to come as we are, and that's it, man. And He takes you right there, and He meets you right there. And so that's the core message, and that He delights in you. And if you're a believer, though, if you're a Christian, once you put your faith in Him, what I'm trying to convince people of is that God delights in you and enjoys you, even in your weakness, if you're a sincere believer. The church, again, I want to not be critical, but religion, and it messes people up. And sometimes people have this idea that God's hard to please. He's always mad at them, and they live feeling shame and guilt. If you've put your faith in Jesus, His blood has cleansed you. He wants you to walk in freedom and forgiveness. Jesus didn't bleed on a tree. So guys like you that have put your faith in Him for the forgiveness of your sins will walk around feeling like failures. That's not what He bled for. He bled to cleanse you, to wash you, to give you freedom, man. So, like, that's a lot of what I'm trying to bring to people. It's just the truth of the gospel. It's just the gospel. It's like the power of the gospel, the beauty of the gospel. It's just kind of been lost. And we've turned it into do's and don'ts and rules, and we miss the beauty of this whole thing. And obviously, you guys hear me preach. I'm not saying that means we just go do whatever we want. God, it's just, what's the motive of your obedience? Is it love-based? You're so convinced that He loves you, that He delights, He's forgiven you, that you're motivated to want to, or do you feel like you got to obey Him to please Him? And so I guess that's probably the core message. You just want people convinced. You want unbelievers convinced. He loves you. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in Him would not perish but have everlasting life. Because God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save it. That's His heart for every unbeliever. He loves them. He died on a cross for them. He's not disgusted with this world like Christians are, right? Mm-hmm. Like, whatever, man, the people on the left. Like that. He bled for them, man. He bled for them. He loves them, right? So that needs to be the posture that we walk in. He loves them, and He wants to bring them into His kingdom. And once He brings them into His kingdom, He wants them to live with the freedom and the joy of knowing that His sacrifice for them on that cross is enough. And then they grow more in His image and in His desires for their life from that place. Not because they're fearing, but because they're just like, you're so awesome. I want to give you my life. I don't know.
I love
the way I got saved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's what happened when I got saved. If you're this beautiful, I'm yours.
It's like irresistible. How could you say no? So
I just want people to see Jesus. That's ultimately what it is, because He's awesome.
Amen. Isn't that should be the Christian answer to everything? Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming. Obviously, we had a lot of stuff we could have talked about, a lot of stuff I probably wanted to talk about. So while we have the cameras on, so I can get it and I can, you'll come back?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
there it is.
I mean, unless a million people see this. No, yes, I'm happy to come back.
Now I got
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
because we just had so many. I mean, there's so many things we could have talked about and dove
Yep.
into. So, but I know you're busy. We super appreciate your time and willingness to come on the podcast.
Love what you guys are doing, really.
And yeah,
Shane is the official chaplain of the Pay It Forward
there it is.
podcast.
Chaplain.
Once a month
Shane Holden.
episode.
There you go. That's awesome.
Add it to your list.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Shane.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you learned something today. And as always, we appreciate your support and hope that you can all find a way this week to pay it forward.